Shut up, compressor. Hey everyone, Matt here with Duke's Models, bringing you a build review of what is probably one of the more anticipated releases of 2023. Arma Hobby's 1/48 scale Hurricane Mk.IIC. Now, if you're not familiar with Arma Hobby, they are a Polish manufacturer who's been making a big splash in 1/72 kits. I built their 1/72 F6C Mustang, which is the photo recon version of the P51B/C, and it was a lovely little kit. It certainly had some areas that I wasn't happy about, but overall 85% of it was amazing. And even the 1/72 scale is not my scale, you know, the kit was good enough that it warranted me going down to the tiny stuff for a little bit. So now that they are expanding more into 1/48, they already have another kit. They have the PZL 11 in 1/48, but the Hurricane is one that people have been waiting for a while. And so, honestly, personally, the Hurricane does pretty much nothing for me as a subject, but it's Arma Hobby, and when they're dropping a 1/48 scale kit, you pay attention. And when the guys at Arma Hobby reach out and say, hey, you want to take a look at the new kit that's coming out, and they offer to send you one to take a look at, you say, sure, this sounds fun. So even though the Hurricane is not my thing, I'm excited to poke around and see what this has to offer. And I should add, they didn't send me one kit, they sent me two. Which means I keep one to do the full Monty on, build, paint, etc. when I'm at a place I can do that. Right now, I'm not. It's too hot to do anything in the garage, so that's why the AC is running. It's why I'm sweating as I talk right now. But I have had the chance to go ahead and build up completely naked, no paint, no filler, anything like that. Just, this is straight up assembly and some sanding. But gone ahead and completely built one of the two samples all the way through, pretty much to completion. Like, I haven't added rigging. That's the only, or like IFF wires. That's the only stuff that would maybe need to be added on top of this. And as you can see, it's a Hurricane. Let's pop the prop off here because it's going to fall off anyway. All that lovely surface detail on the wing. You get some 3D printed parts with these initial releases. So the exhaust right here, guns. If you look in there, the seat. And the seat is quite lovely. Like, I am happy with that. That is a good addition to the kit. Underside, everything looks nice. There are a few seams that probably need some kind of filler, a little bit. The chin. I think up top is actually pretty good. Maybe right here in front of the windscreen could use a little bit of love as it heads into primer. For the most part, though, this thing goes together wonderfully. So what I want to do is I kind of want to step back and essentially walk through the instructions with y'all and use the instructions with this kit. Just kind of analyze how I think it built, where I think the strengths are, where I think maybe some improvements could be made. And I should also add, it's hard to fully make it out and appreciate it in the video, I think, but I've taken some high-res photos that can show it too. But the surface detail on this thing is just phenomenal. I mean, this would be stunning in 1/32 scale, and we're looking at it in 48. This is god level surface detail, and coming off the Qatari Spitfire, which I feel like definitely left a lot on the table in terms of what it could do surface detail wise, this thing, absolute treat. So yeah, let me grab the instructions and we'll start going through it. Okay, so first of all, you get to start in the gear bay world. Now, the gear bays on this thing go together pretty decently. You've got walls that build up, you've got a roof that goes on top, little shit goes in there. Then you hop over to the cockpit seat for some reason. I didn't worry about this because I've got the 3D printed one. If you're building a certain version, you get to change some of the ejector chutes to make room for those fuel tanks that are going to go in. And then you install the gear doors into the bottom of the upper wing half. Or not the gear doors, sorry, the gear bays. Into that's the upper wing, under the underside of it. So all that stuff gets sandwiched right in here, essentially. And what that looks like on our Hurricane, you can see it all right in there, right? That's all that stuff. And it glues in pretty well. Like, it fits nicely. The one thing that I would note as you're doing that is you need to make sure that the roof pieces, which I call them the roof pieces, it's really the lower wing where it sandwiches up against the gear bay back here can be a bit floppy. So you need to be sure that you lock that part down. Because when it comes together, otherwise it's like the upper, again, because I'm working on upside down, the lower wing, the actual outer skin surface part, if it's floating away from the gear bays, you need to go ahead and make sure you're just locking that down. Not a big deal, but don't want it to catch you off guard. Install the landing lights. These are pretty decent. They're missing the little spinny disc thing that is very noticeable in Hurricane landing lights. I'm sure, when Edward does their PE, that will be a part of it. But it's the only thing that I would call really like a detail miss going on here. Then it gets fun. So once the wing is together, you start building the cockpit on top of the wing. These pieces mount in there quite well, quite authoritatively. I was actually surprised how well the sidewalls mount in. These little posts stick in quite well. And then it's not the instructions don't show it the best, but this angled piece here, piece A16, slots in and actually clicks into your side pieces, and so it frames them up and gives them a very strong geometry. But you need to get to that point first. So forewarned, as you're getting through here, that is where you want stuff to link up. I found the placement of the stick very confusing. It doesn't show it super well here. I would say that when you install this A16 piece, where it needs to go and sit in, it needs to like really sit in, because this thing has to come and like sit down sort of on top of it. So you can run into a bit of what the hell's going on here with those. It's not that bad, but just, pay attention. Instrument panel is very nice. Don't know how well we can see it in here from here, but it's a good instrument panel, especially for 1/48. And it just goes into the side. A lot of these little side bits, the A32s in particular, tiny, like little dimples, and not my favorite things. I don't get why they weren't molded on. The other ones, again, good, nice level of detail in here. You can see them right there on the sidewalls. Cool. The only other thing I would note before you go ahead and glue it down is if you look right here, you can see how all this shit fits together right. The rear bulkhead behind the seat, make sure that you can fit the fuselage down over it and that it sits just in front of the fuselage like so. That threw me off the first time. It took, 10 seconds of what the fuck did I just do to figure out what was wrong. But, forewarned, just make sure that that's sitting where it needs to sit. 3D printed seat is wonderful. It just kind of like plugs right into it. And then you just bring all that together and you have essentially the bulk of the airframe. Underside, the intake here, the radiator, and this all goes together well too. Nothing too fancy here really. This B27 part I was nervous about. I'm always nervous about putting a central piece like that into two halves coming together, but it was not a problem. Like, it looks fine. Everything just shrunk right in place. Yay. Tails are genius level design. There's no way to get the, you're going to have them level because they are one piece. And they slot right onto the back of the fuselage like so, and then the top of the tail kind of sits down on top of it. Very nice, elegant design. It's very hard to screw it up. I would also note, if you look down from the top, the tail is canted towards the port side just ever so slightly, so be aware of that. That will probably also confuse judges when they're doing, alignment judging, because they use the tail and the leading edge of the wings to identify where things are. It's canted to the port side. Just, yeah. I ran into problems on the Mustang and its tricky tail because two reasons. First, the fillet needed to be cut open, and I just cut at a weird angle. Second, the tail coming down on top just didn't join as cleanly as this one did. So part of that was, I'm sure, my fault, but this one is, I think, more cleanly executed than the Mustang. The rudder, I couldn't get the post lined up. It was like they were fine on either top or bottom, but not both. And so what I did is I just kind of slightly enlarged the holes on the bottom one, and it fits in fine now. Yay. Ingenuity at its finest. Tail wheel. I installed this early because I was like, what the fuck, I'm just building the whole damn thing, right? And then I promptly snapped it, so I had to drill and pin it. It's fragile, so just, yeah, know that ahead of time. Maybe even drill and pin it in advance. Now we get to the fun part, the gear struts. So on the Mustang, the gear struts were maddening. It was basically like sticking a, it was sticking a toothpick into a bottle cap, kind of like level of flop. Like you put them on there and the thing would just, it would sploot out. And so I was very concerned coming into this. Like, that was, for me on the Mustang, that was a very non-fun part of it. So how do the gear struts work here? Well, they actually work just fine. So let's see if I can get y'all in here. So basically you have like two main parts, right? You've got the main gear strut, which also has this lateral piece on it. And then you've got a second piece that plugs in here and connects to the gear strut right there. Now, this piece in the back has a big, chunky, buffy rectangle thing that plugs in very firmly. There's no fucking around with where that goes. The post where the gear strut goes in is a little bit floppy. I'm not gonna lie. It'll move around. But when you put that in there and you get this little arm locked into position here, and there's a little tiny like pip on it that clicks into the gear bay right there. Once you get that in place and this piece in place and glued, it's locked and it's good. And it's aligned, and it's just not a fucking problem in any way, shape, or form. Like, it just works very well. So, kudos to Arma. You guys definitely passed the gear strut test with flying colors. I wish all gear struts were this painless. Yay. Moving on to these little fairing things. These were kind of a pain in the ass, at least on this one, because if I was doing option 1, which is the Night Fighter one, this has to basically be smooth over, so I did it. Not fun playing with sanding in that lovely detail area, but the leading edge is more bare than anything else on there, so it's not that awful. Next, guns. Guns and clear tips and the pitot tube step to get up into the cockpit. So let's talk about these. The lenses on the wingtip lights, lovely, just lovely. They fit perfectly, just no complaints. The landing light windows, they are nice. The plastic around them isn't as nice. As you can see, like right in here, there's a little pull away of the plastic where it creates a little divot that's going to need to be filled. I would fill all that shit before installing these things, to be honest, and just be done with that. The pitot tube mount is a little bit squirrely. It would be a pain in the ass after painting. I might find a better way to do that. As far as the guns, they're fine. They're 3D printed, so they're nice detail. I don't think they're all exactly straight. I feel like they're a little bit warped. So I might look to see who else is doing what. Like, maybe another person's making, or another outfit's making slightly better 3D printed guns. Or maybe, Master will come out with a brass set or something like that. But not really anything super complaining about. Moving around to the top now, and the exhaust are lovely, and they fit in perfectly. You know, these 3D printed ones are great. I wouldn't go with the kit ones, like the kit plastic ones. I'd make sure they're 3D printed. So if you don't get the initial set that has those, I believe that you can get, I think Edward's certainly going to make some. I think Ask is making some as well, and I'm sure they'll be all over the place. The prop, nicely done as well. It's the typical trap prop method, but I don't know, I feel like this is a particularly non-egregious one. It just builds up nice and clean. Then we get the canopy and windscreen. And if you want to add the tanks for option 1, those kind of build around a little thing that connects in, and then you just install them and you're done. So definitely more involved than like the, you know, Tamiya 2-sprue wonders of the 90s, but it's, you know, I would put it basically on the same level as like, you know, Edwards 148 scale kits. Like, if you've built those, you kind of know what to expect. This is similar. Tendencies overall are very good. The wing root fit here is some of the best wing root I've ever encountered anywhere. It's phenomenal. Surface detail, perfect. Lovely. If I were to ding Arma on anything with this kit, it would honestly be that some elements are just really hard to test fit before you just kind of have to, you know, scream Leroy Jenkins and start throwing glue. And that is frustrating as a builder who likes to test fit. There are times that you just can't. And particularly with this kit, and it's kind of like, you know, I want to have a little bit more, I want to have a little more assurance as I'm working on it that I can kind of back up and readdress if I need to, as opposed to just committing. But that's fine. Also, a lot of the location elements on these things are tiny, fragile little pips. And that lack of, you know, positive stay in place, like almost build it without glue location, gets in the way a little bit too. Again, because you can't test fit a few steps in advance. You have to kind of like just, you know, like the gear struts, there's no like just put them in plate. Like they've got to be glued, like fucking glued, or they're gonna flop all over the place. So that's just a thing to be aware of. You know, and it would probably be more complicated with paint involved, but because I'm just building this to see how it builds, it wasn't that big of a deal. But anyway, what do I think of this kit? Well, if you are a fan of the Hurricane at all, you have to buy this. You just have to. Like, it's a phenomenal kit of a very important, historically relevant aircraft. If you're not that big a fan of the Hurricane, if you're just kind of like, you know, it's a flying couch, you should still buy this kit because it's just a phenomenal kit. And if you don't really care about the Hurricane, I don't either, but I would still build another one of these in a heartbeat. I'm looking forward to the 2C Trop coming out so I can do some, you know, North Africa and some Malta schemes. But yeah, Arma, you guys have knocked it out of the park with this. This is quite possibly the best prop kit in 148 right now. Like, it is that good. And Hurricane fans who've been moaning about, you know, there's another Spitfire got released. Well, now you guys get to do a little, you know, a little victory dance of your own and enjoy building this lovely bastard. And if you're going to be at the 2023 Nats in San Marcos, look for this thing on the contest tables. That's right, I'm going to enter it completely unpainted, just exactly as you see it here, and throw it on the tables. It's not going to win anything, but you know, I figure worst comes to worst, people kind of smirk a bit seeing an unpainted plane sitting on the tables. So yeah, I want to thank Arma for sending me this kit to evaluate and check out, and definitely recommend them for not only this, but for their 1/72 scale kits, which are also lovely build experiences. So that's that. I'm hoping to do more of these kind of naked build reviews in the future, so stay tuned. And hopefully as the weather starts to cool down in 3 months, I will be back to doing more videos on a more regular basis. For right now though, the bench is too hot to really do much at, so this is a bit of an exception for the summer, but enjoy it. and enjoy your bench time, and I will catch y'all later.